Before I say a few words, I must do, of course, the usual housekeeping reminders. So please could you silence your mobile phones and any other gadgets that you have. However, we won't take offence if we spot you taking a sneaky look at your mobiles, because we'll assume that you're just checking any tweets that we're doing about the conference. And our Twitter name and hashtag are written on your agendas, so please feel free to get stuck in. Exits are clearly marked and no fire alarm practices are scheduled. I'm sure you'll all agree that small and mid-sized quoted companies are the engines of growth for the UK economy. They are the key creators of economic growth for the UK, through the jobs they create, through the sales they make, and the innovation that they generate and inspire. Small and mid-sized quoted companies account for 85% of the publicly quoted companies in the UK, and the UK government cannot afford to ignore them and must ensure that they have the access to the finance necessary to fuel their growth ambitions. Economic recovery will be driven by our sector. In the midst of this economic downturn, access to any form of finance remains difficult. Our quarterly economic sentiment surveys have been telling us this over the last 2 years. We can and we must do more to ensure that companies can access public equity markets. And to do this, we must fine-tune the rules. Small and mid-sized quoted companies are fundamentally different from large blue-chip companies in terms of their growth potential, size, turnover, number of employees and types of investors. They require a different regulatory environment. So we're calling on the European Commission to create a single definition of small and mid-sized quoted company. This way, rules and policy can be targeted and made more appropriate to facilitate the growth of smaller companies on public equity markets. One size doesn't fit all. We want the European Commission to be small-minded in the best possible way. And we must do more fiscal refuelling. Government must give small and mid-sized quoted companies the support they require and target investment into the sector through fiscal incentives. We welcome the move to allow AIM and ISDX shares into ISAs and exempt those shares from stamp duty, but more should be done. Recalibrating entrepreneurs' relief, bringing back the dividend tax credit for pension funds, and making the cost of raising equity tax deductible. All of these would encourage long-term investment and funding for growth. All of these would hasten a shift from temporary revolving bank finance to permanent equity capital. We must also ensure that financial products are connected to the real economy. Indices are weighted towards the largest global companies and do not necessarily reflect local economic contribution. By developing indices that are more UK-centric, further liquidity should flow into UK companies. With the majority of companies optimistic about the UK economy for the first time in our small and mid-cap sentiment index, now is the time to ensure that there's nothing holding back these companies from growing and creating jobs. We must engineer growth, and this is an age-old problem. Many years ago, a factory manager in the north of England was beside himself with worry. The fuel pipe to the boiler that provided light and power throughout his entire factory was blocked. No fuel, no light, no power, no economic activity. Many experts had tried to repair it, and after spending many days working on the problem, no one had been successful. Time is money, he kept on saying, and this is costing me a fortune in experts and lost production. At this point, a man in blue overalls from a small cap came to his office and said, "I can repair your fuel system, sir." The factory manager was unimpressed. "I've had the best there is come here to repair the fuel system, and at great expense they've all failed. Look at you, you're a small cap. You've only got a small tool bag and not much in it by the look of it." "You're right, sir, but I have the tools necessary to fix this particular problem. Now, do you want me to fix it or not?" With nothing to lose, the factory manager led the man in the blue overalls to the boiler room. In the centre of the room stood the boiler. Miles of pipework issued into and out of the boiler. Knocking, clunking, hissing and puffing could be heard from every inch of fuel pipe. but no fuel flowed to power the machines nor provide light for the workers. In a somewhat patronising manner, the factory manager invited the man to get on with it. Quietly and without fuss, the man from the small cap selected a tool from his bag, a small rubber mallet. Quietly and methodically, he began to tap various places, listening carefully to the responses he got from the metalwork. For 10 minutes, he tapped at pressure valves, at thermostats, at U-bends, at collars and joints where he felt problems might exist. Finally, he returned to his tool bag and swapped his small mallet for a much larger one. Then he stepped up to a complex elbow at one section of piping that led into the boiler and gave it a massive thump with his mallet. The effect was instantaneous. Fuel began to flow, power began to build up, and machines began to chatter. The manager was delighted. "Thank you, send me the bill and double your normal price." "That won't be necessary, sir," said the man in the blue overalls. And when the bill arrived, the manager was duly stunned. It was a huge sum for those days, £100. Although he'd paid similar sums to the large multinational companies who'd failed to fix the problem, they'd been there for days. And the man in the blue overalls had only been there for 10 minutes. So, being a good northerner, the factory manager asked for a breakdown of costs. The reply came by return of post. The total bill is £100. The cost of 10 minutes tapping is £1. The value of knowing where to tap is £99. To get the UK economy going, there are numerous small and mid-sized companies that know exactly where to tap. These engines of growth need the fuel, the capital and the environment to expand confidently. Our conference today is all about that. We want to explore what the government and Europe can do for the engines of growth, small and mid-sized quoted companies. We want to celebrate the diversity, the strength and the influence of the sector, and we want to inform you of market developments and address difficult issues. This is an interactive day. First up, we have a panel session on the availability of finance, where we want to tackle how we get more fuel into the engines of growth. Then we've got a session where you can ask 3 leading small and mid-cap fund managers their views on investment and probe them on how to improve liquidity. And after lunch, we have a session that tackles a number of the key corporate governance issues, such as executive pay and proxy voting. And rest assured, we've got plenty of time for questions, so please fire away. And also, we've got some live questions powered by YouGov at the end of each session. You've got voting pads on your table, and we'll show you the results right away. Before we start, I must thank our sponsors who've made this event possible. All are leading professional service firms in the sector. Our headline sponsors, Crowe Clark Whitehill, Winterflood Securities, and Standard & Poor's Ratings Services. And our supporting sponsors, YouGov PLC and ICAP Securities and Derivatives Exchange. In the breakout area, we have BRR Media, who specialise in audio and video webcast delivery and distribution for company results and investor presentations. They're producing and streaming videos today of your reaction to some of the issues, so stop by and have a chat with them, and they'll stream and video you. We also have MEIS compensation data demonstrating a product for companies wanting to benchmark director pay cost efficiently. They're also in the breakout area. Our keynote speaker this morning was due to be Michael Fallon MP, Minister of State for Business and Enterprise. Unfortunately, he's unable to attend due to another commitment and sends his apologies. In his place, we're very pleased to have Lord Younger, Parliamentary Under Secretary of State at the Department for Business, Innovation and Skills. Lord Younger was appointed in January this year. As the Minister, he's responsible for the business of the Department of Business, Innovation and Skills in the House of Lords. He's also responsible for intellectual property and the Intellectual Property Office. He's a Conservative member of the House of Lords, and prior to entering the House of Lords, he had a 25-year career in HR and in the financial services industry. Please join me in welcoming Lord Younger.